Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Stephanie Gailing, who's here to share with us her new book, The Complete Book of Dreams, a guide to unlocking the meaning and healing power of your dreams. Now, Stephanie Gailing is a wellness consultant and modern mystic with more than 25 years of experience. Her unique approach weaves together compassion-based coaching, wellness strategies, dream work, and astrology insights to provide her clients with stellar life guidance. As the co-host of the So Divine podcast, she is a resident astrologer at Healers, the on-site dream and astrology expert at Rise and Shine, and the astrologer in residence at the Cloud Room in Seattle. Her work on holistic well-being has been featured in Refinery 29, Bustle, Seattle Magazine, City Arts, Mind, Body, Green, and many more. So let's welcome to the show, Stephanie Gailing.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm really happy to be here.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this new book. What inspired you to write this?
Yeah, so my whole career has been dedicated to helping people advance, and strengthen their sense of well-being. And that's come from a couple of angles. One is, as an astrologer, seeing astrology as a beautiful language to help people further understand themselves. And through that, of course, embrace a greater sense of well-being. My other background was as a wellness consultant and nutritionist. And I worked a lot with people in terms of helping them to connect to health and wellness, right, through a variety of different avenues. And so just realizing the beautiful overflow between the two of them, the overlap, and how by understanding yourself through astrology, you then more understand yourself in terms of what stresses you. Like, how do you define well-being? And what are your more personalized avenues for taking better care of yourself?
I was so surprised that well-being and wellness was really included in this, because a lot of times when you think about astrology, you don't think about the wellness component with it.
Yeah, for sure, right? Most people think about astrology and they think about relationships or, career decisions or getting to know myself better, but also under that purview, right, of getting to know myself better. Like, what makes me tick? What gives me stress? And also there is, throughout the history of astrology, the ability to look at also physical well-being. The ancients were both astrologers and doctors, so in that too, there's that conception of different signs or different planets have different relationships to different parts of the body. So looking at it from that angle, but also from that emotional angle, right? Like someone who's in Aries, they're wanting to be on the go and they want to be on the move. And so if there's a block or things take too long, right, they have impatience, right? And that impatience can then be the cause of their stress. So them knowing that and then having strategies to, move with that can really help to elevate their well-being, right? Versus other people who have other zodiacal signs, their stress or their emotional orientation, what they need comes from different angles. And just again, knowing that, embracing that. Also, just sometimes I've noticed people saying, aha, yeah, that is me, right? And then that awareness of that's me, I can stand for that. I can honor that within myself, right? Allows them to take the steps to personalize their path based upon their needs.
Well, that is definitely an empowering place to be, where you can kind of look at something that guides you, not maybe step by step, but at least gives you information on how to move forward, which I think that's priceless.
Yes, same for me as well.
So how can someone identify what their planetary signs are, and how much does that really kind of play a part in discovering how they can really take care of themselves better?
Yeah, so you can look at it from two angles. The first is, and really the most elemental, is your sun sign. And when I say sun sign, really what that is, when someone says to you, what's your sign? That's the sun sign. That's where the sun was when you were born. So most every person knows that, right? People say I'm a Libra, I'm a Virgo, I'm a Capricorn. That to me is the first basis of knowing that to use astrology for your self-care. Now, many other people who have been diving more into astrology, especially in the recent years, may also know the location of the moon, where the moon was when they were born. The moon represents our emotional being, what feeds us and what nourishes us, right? And so knowing your moon sign, and later I'll tell you where you can find that out if you don't know, gives you also access to your well-being on that level. And if you know something called your ascendant or rising sign, which is a point on the chart that represents our body and how we carry ourselves and our orientation, then you can also use that information as well. But really not to make this complicated, like just knowing, like when I would ask you, like, what's your sign? Like knowing that then allows you to look into your well-being from that angle.
Okay. Well, and do you know what? It's interesting. I hear people sometimes talk, and this is probably a little bit off topic, but you hear sometimes people talk about if you are in a retrograde, like born in a retrograde, does that affect anything?
So yes, so when a planet is retrograde, and usually people, like, all the planets do go retrograde. The ones that people are the most sort of interested in, because they're most personal, if you will, are the retrograde of Mercury, right? Mercury retrograde, or Venus or Mars retrograde. And while that might impact your well-being, like, for example, if you were born when Mercury is retrograde, your path to understanding, right? Because that's Mercury, the planet of the mind, is more internal, right? I always, share with people, if you were born under a Mercury retrograde, do not discount your intuition. Do not discount that your pathways for understanding, sure, may come through an outer route, right? May come through inputs from others or the environment, but always turn within yourself. So we could look at that as well-being, which is if someone who is born with a Mercury retrograde is not really spending that time to like assess and understand, right, from a more feeling oriented or internal or intuitive perspective, there may be frustrations, and then frustrations may lead to stress, and then stress may lead to, a variety of different aspects that might lower their sense of well-being.
Well, all that information is definitely, very important to know. I would think, because you do hear people kind of, they talk about Mercury retrograde as if, there's a plague coming or something.
Oh my God, completely. And I always feel like, and that, like, that's sort of one of my missions, is like to demystify Mercury retrograde. Like, it's not a bad time. You don't have to hide under the couch, right? There's beautiful ways to use Mercury retrograde, like realizing in a Mercury retrograde, it's about going back over things, reviewing, taking another step from a different angle to look at your communication. So again, if then during that 3 weeks, that's sort of the curricula, that's the orientation, then you won't get stressed, right? Because you're not going out there trying to communicate, you're reviewing more of your communication. So again, we can use that period, and we can use astrology on that, through that lens, to see how it can help you to further foster a greater sense of ease and therefore well-being.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, because that is kind of a thing you always hear people talk about. So, I mean, my goodness, you've been doing this work for a really long time. What started you in it?
Yes. Yeah, it's been over 25 years now, I think. What really started me in it is, again, this desire to really want to be of service to people, right? To like help them to live their best lives, right? Full of joy, full of ease, and full of feeling the best that they can on every level. And that pathway took me down many courses. It definitely took me to like, learning astrology. I remember my first astrology reading, I just was like, wow, like this person, all they knew of me was my birthday and birth time and place. And they knew me, and what they shared allowed me to like live my life with just much more ease and awareness. And I thought, wow, if I could know this could allow me to be of greater service to the people that I work with. And so I combined the astrology again with my background in natural wellness and nutrition, and just have seen it to be this like really beautiful repository where people can, connect to feeling better and to feel more empowered, right? Like decades ago, right, when self-care and wellness started to take root, it was this incredible moment like, wow, we can take our well-being a little bit more greater into our hands and have more self-agency, if you will. But it's also like, wow, there's so many different things, like which supplements, which herbs, which yoga poses, like what's for me. But the more you know yourself, right, and astrology being one of the tools can help you to curate a self-care regimen, if you will, that is good for you, right? Not just for everybody.
So are there areas of focus on health that, once we get into this, it's like, okay, this is my sign, and these are some of the things I really need to focus on, some tips to focus on?
Yeah, for sure. Right. And so traditionally, and when I mean traditionally, for thousands of years, the different signs were aligned with different parts of the body. And these parts of the body were the places, or are the places, excuse me, where we may see that if you're of that sign, that it may be those places where you hold your stress, right? Or if you have stress, like that's more of your weak spot where symptoms or dis-ease, not disease, but dis-ease may manifest. But yet, I should say that before, but yet these are the places to really look at and to fortify and to take care of, and can then become more of your strength. So for example, you want me to just do a quick run through each of the signs?
Oh, yes. I'd love that.
Okay, great. And then it's interesting because when I speak to this, people are like, oh yeah, pick a sign. And yes, that is my area of like focus. So it's oftentimes really interesting for people. So very briefly said, like Aries rules the head and the circulatory system. So a lot of people who are Aries do find that like headaches, right? Or, some sort of disturbances like in their head like that, like are sort of their weakness. Taurus rules the ears, the throat, the neck, and the thyroid. Gemini, as the twins, rules the twin parts of the body, most of them. It rules the shoulders, the arms, the wrists, the hands, and importantly as well, the respiratory system and the nervous system. Cancer rules the stomach and the esophagus. And for women, it also rules the breasts and sort of the, Cancer is like the mother. So also the womb, the uterus. Where are we next? Leo, which shines so brightly, rules the heart, the spine, and just like the lion, that is the totem for Leo, the mane or our hair. Virgo, as the sign that's about discernment and assimilation, rules the small intestine and the digestive system. A lot of Virgos do talk about how like they have a propensity to worry, and oftentimes that may like sort of manifest in their stomach or their digestive system, I should say. Libras rule the lower back, the kidneys, and as the sign of beauty, also the skin. Scorpios rule the large intestines and the sexual organs. Sagittarius, which is ruled by the planet Jupiter, the largest planet, also rules the largest organ in the body, not the skin, I should say, because that's the largest organ, but the liver, as well as the hips. Capricorn rules, structured Capricorn rules the bones, the connective tissues, the joints. Aquarius rules the ankles and also our eyes. And also this may be a little bit more subtle or nuanced, but the bioenergetic system, when people speak about their aura, or their ability to sort of sense things energetically. And last, but of course not least, we have Pisces, right? And if you can tell, or you can track, is that Aries started at the head, we moved down, Pisces ends at the feet. So Pisces, the soulful sign, rules the souls, rules the feet, and also rules the lymphatic and the immune system. So again, just seeing too, listening in to see okay, what your sign is that where you carry stress, right? Is that the area that you seem to need to focus more upon, and or through this, just to think about how you can strengthen that part of your body.
I really appreciate the way that you went and explained that. My goodness, it makes so much sense from the head to the toes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And again, too, this is not something that I've created. This is something, too, when you look back through history, through thousands of years from the beginning of astrology, there were these correspondences. So, and, that was rooted in a system called medical astrology. for me, I look at it more as like wellness astrology, right? How do we use astrology to bolster our well-being and our sense of wellness?
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Stephanie Gailing in regards to her new book, The Complete Book of Dreams, a guide to unlocking the meaning and healing power of your dreams. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Every day, pets are surrendered and abandoned. For these helpless and hurting animals, Paws Humane Society acts as a voice for the voiceless, providing hope for a brighter future. You can make a difference in the life of a shelter pet. Become a humane hero today. Just $10 a month will provide much-needed food, shelter, medical care, and love. It takes a community. It takes heroes like you. Together we can. Together we will. Together we are Paws Humane. Visit pawshumane.org to be a hero in every animal story.
Are you an actor, public speaker, or an executive telling your story over Zoom? Jean-Louis Rodrigue and Scott Weintraub's new book, Back to the Body, takes the process they use to coach top Hollywood talent like Margot Robbie, Jack Black, and Ke Huy Quan and makes it available to everyone. Using your body and its energy as a point of departure, your work will gain an enhanced level of performance and depth. Back to the Body, available on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Stephanie Gailing, who's here sharing with us her new book, The Complete Book of Dreams, a guide to unlocking the meaning and healing power of your dreams. You mentioned a few things in your book, natural remedies, essential oils, and flower essences. What are those and how do they work with the body?
Great question. So natural remedies are sort of an umbrella for herbs and dietary supplements. Essential oils are those beautiful fragrances, right? People are most familiar with lavender or rosemary or eucalyptus that are, the volatile oils of different plants that both have an impact upon us on our mood, but also have been found to have an impact upon us physiologically. And flower essences are derived from flowers and plants, but they don't actually have fragrance. They're more a vibrational elixir made from the flowers. The most common one that people know of when it comes to flower essences is a combination one called the Bach Rescue Remedy. So flower essences work for helping to disperse different levels of stress. So do you want me to give you examples for a few signs from any of those?
Yes, we would love that.
So, for example, Gemini ruling the lungs, the respiratory system. So one of the great essential oils to try for Gemini, I'll give you two, is eucalyptus, right? In a steam bath, because eucalyptus is really known for helping to clear the lungs. And also for Gemini who may have a bit of a wired up nervous system, because Geminis are so mentally and mind oriented, always taking in so much information and trying to process it, that could lead to a bit of agitation or stress. Lavender flower essence is a really beautiful flower essence for them as well. So let's think of another one. Okay, Leo. The Leo spirit is an encouraging spirit. And it's also about learning about the courage of one's heart, to be in one's heart, to shine forth from one's heart, and to be generous. And so there is a flower essence called borage, which is all about encouraging that courage in the heart. So no matter what may be happening, you come back to your heart and you have confidence in your heart that it can actually stream forth. And thinking of another one, that comes to mind is for Capricorns, right? And Capricorns who may find themselves with a propensity for like really needing to concentrate on their structural system, right? Their bones, their joints. And Capricorn specifically also rules the knee, is that, say, a supplement like glucosamine sulfate, right? Which has been shown in research studies to uphold the matrix of our connective tissue, right? And really bolster the health of joints. Maybe something too that you may want to look at, or something like turmeric, the spice that you can use in your food, or you can take as a supplement. Amazing anti-inflammatory that also has been shown to uphold joint and connective tissue health. So those are just 3 examples that I wanted to share about how you can match these in terms of, again, if I'm orientating from this perspective, what can I do to uphold my well-being?
Well, I think that that's amazing. And I know you also talk about elements. And, for a lot of people, they may not even know what that is.
Mm-hmm. So each of the 12 zodiacal signs, right, Aries through Pisces, is classified by one of 4 elements. We have the fire signs, Aries and Leo and Sagittarius. Those born under those signs, or have them strongly in their chart, they're this quick moving, intuitive, very spirit oriented sign. There's that flame of inspiration that they have. And again, in that need for movement. The earth signs, which would be Taurus or Virgo or Capricorn, are more grounded, right? There's that connection to the natural world, to rhythm, to practicality, to the mundane, right? And so people who have earth or focus on earth may be more practical, right? Pragmatic, and may, like a slower rhythm than, say, someone who's steeped in fire, right? So again, you look at that in terms of, what's my groove, right? And how do I make sure that I'm aligning with my natural rhythm? Now we move on to the air signs. The air are the Geminis, the Librans, and those who have Aquarius, those born under Aquarius, have the moon in Aquarius, etc. So the air is mental. It's intellectual. It wants to understand, and it wants to relate, socially relate. And so for people with air, strong air, the importance is, again, learning, understanding, conversing, gathering facts, discerning facts, as well as not doing that, though, in isolation, right? Doing that with others. So here's just one quick example. Air signs may really find themselves, if they need a little bit more, say, oomph in their fitness regimen, right? They need that motivation to exercise, calling up a friend, right? Or going to a class, doing it with others where you're both learning and you are honoring your natural need and desire for relationship. Finally, we have the water signs, which are Cancer and Scorpio and Pisces. So we've covered everybody. Water signs are more feeling oriented. They're more emotional, right? They're more sensitive on that level. And so, of course, for everybody, I say, like, mind and body and spirit are connected. But I oftentimes think, too, for the water signs, it's also of real high import to really take your emotional well-being, right? And your sensitivity into consideration. If you're more of like a psychic or emotional sponge, right, you may take on more of other people's worries and concerns, right? How might you, in your ability to create boundaries, still compassionate boundaries, so that you can, again, not take that on where it can, engender a sort of weakness in your own well-being. Okay, so we've covered them all 4 elements and all 12 signs.
Oh my goodness. And that's great because it really gives people kind of a starting place for moving forward. I mean, your book has so much information. It would be easy kind of to dive in and get lost in it in a good way, So
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I love the elements as a starting place, right? Because again, you can really understand the sort of more broad view. And in each of the chapters that I have, when I speak about all the 12 signs, I do speak and discuss like that signs element, right? And giving people awareness again, additional awareness of, again, what makes you tick, right? And to me, self-awareness is well-being, right? Like, okay, I know more about myself and now I can, empower myself, embrace myself, be more compassionate with who I am. And again, discern what it is I need to do so that I can feel as replenished as I can.
Oh, I love that. Because you even cover sleep in your book. And for a lot of us, we're kind of lacking on that.
For sure. Right. I mean, sleep is one of, to me, like the most important gifts for all of us in terms of like having us feel, with peace and ease and clarity. And yet, in our productive society, let alone in our stressful times, right, where we have to, turn our attention to so many things that we need to manage, sleep often gets discounted. Sleep and dreams is one of my favorite topics. It's actually the topic of the other book that I wrote before, The Complete Book of Dreams, in terms of helping people to galvanize and relate with and to be able to connect to both cherishing sleep, and knowing why it's important, but having a good night's sleep. And so in this book, I was really excited to take the opportunity to also, speak to that subject, to help each of the signs, right, when they're orienting from how they see the world and how they orient to life, to help them, maybe with some tips to like get a better night's sleep. And to sort of elevate the importance of sleep. Because I agree, it's something that most of us do not get enough of. And it's elemental. Research shows again and again how not having adequate rest like can incur, the heart problems or blood sugar dysregulation. It's intrinsically related to like weight management, let alone our emotional well-being, our moods, how we relate with others. So sleep is inherently important.
Yes, it is. And especially now,
Especially now.
Especially now. I think, especially with having the pandemic and going through this period of history, I think a lot of people are looking at this as, gosh, they're kind of refocusing what's important. And your book really helps people to get to that place.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think that we've had this revisioning, right, of like what's essential and what really has significance and what do we really value, and how can we now, move through our lives, like really putting that, in our focus.
And one of the things that you have that, our listeners would love, I think, in your book is you also have healthy eating tips for each sign, which I found to be just fascinating.
Yeah. And I was really happy to speak to this too, because that's my background as a nutritionist, to like really be able to like marry these two, and just some examples of that. With Aries, right? Aries is moving quickly. It's like, I don't have time for anything. I need to be like out on, on the racetrack or the battlefield, like ready for my day. But it's okay, wait, you might not have time for breakfast. Make a little time for breakfast, or just like pack a breakfast with you, because of the importance of needing that fuel. Let's see, Cancer, right? The Cancers are so emotional and so feeling oriented, to really be careful if you're not expressing your feelings, that you don't orient to emotional eating or emotional overeating, if you will. Let's think of another example, Librans, right? Who are very socially oriented, right? And also very pleasure oriented, quite sybaritic, if you will, just to watch with Librans that they don't like, and they also have sort of an affinity for sweets, right? Just again, to watch in terms of like, finding the balance in terms of like, whether it be drinks or sweets or, overindulgence, just to watch that, right? Where you can still have a beautiful meal, but also watching, for the foods that would better support your sense of strength and energy. So just 3 examples.
Well, I think those are good. That's really good advice, especially now because everyone's talking about the weight they've gained during COVID.
Yes, completely. The COVID pounds, the COVID 15. I know.
And how to kind of refocus that and, kind of turn that around in a way that really benefits us.
Yes, for sure. So important. So important.
You did so much research for this book, and I'm sure a lot of it is just plain experience because you've been doing this for so long. Was there anything that surprised you when you're going through your research and going, "Gosh," because it almost seems like in much of this, some of it was channeled.
Yes and yes, if you will. A lot of it, I mean, it came from different angles, right? It came from doing the research, right? And seeing like who has said what, like what has been like sort of carried over traditionally. That was the starting place. Some of it also came from experience, like whether it be my experience or the experience of, clients or people that I've worked with over the years. Some of it also came from this initiating of matching, right? Of saying, okay, like for example, back with that example I gave with Leo and the borage flower essence. Okay, if Leo is about, again, how do I be in the most generativity and generosity of my heart? Which flower essences would support that? And flower essences are something I've worked with for so long that I love so much. So, then thinking, knowing what I knew about flower essences and also researching it, realizing like, oh, borage is a beautiful match, right? And so seeing that and ushering that forth, and then seeing people use that in practice, right? And then seeing that, in fact, that does help them to bolster, that sense of orientation. So, and some of that, when you speak about sort of the quote, the channeling, is like, it was more, I'd say like the aha, like, okay, this is the need. What could match that need? Oh, aha, right? That sense of like, for example, again, in our one example, like, oh, borage, like that may be a beautiful, may have a beautiful alliance.
And it's interesting when people think of borage, they don't think of that's going to be something you could really eat, but something you can incorporate in ice cubes and all sorts of things.
Completely. And I would say too, like for Leos, and again, not if anybody's listening who's not a Leo, that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy borage, right? Whether it be in a flower essence or, incorporating the flower into your water, into your, which I love to do, like making the steeped water with borage, or into your ice cubes, or into your salads, right? But again, let's just speaking from that Leo perspective, you can either use the flower essence, again, that, vibrational energy of the flower, or just incorporate borage, to those examples that you offered. I completely agree. So yes, and yes, and yes.
I'm sure people are running out now to their local garden's place and see if they can get borage, right? Oh my goodness. Well, what final thoughts would you like to leave our listeners with, Stephanie?
I think the final thoughts that I would like to leave your listeners with are twofold, if I may. One is also just to speak to the moments of time. And maybe this gets back to the question that you said about the Mercury retrograde, right? Like also in my book too, I speak about like the different new moons and full moons and Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde, and Venus retrograde, like how at different moments in time, there may be that invitation to focus on different areas of our well-being. So just sort of that sort of timely temporal piece as well. And then I would say this is that, again, however it can, whether it's through astrology or some other means, right? The more you focus on knowing your wholeness, right? And knowing the unique being that you are. What do you need? What makes you tick? What gives you stress? What gives you nourishment? Like what makes you feel like you really feel a sense of flourishing? To know that, to claim that, right? And to make choices and decisions from that awareness. To me, that puts you on a path to access a greater level of well-being.
Well, gosh, Stephanie, I mean, I really enjoyed your book, The Complete Guide to Astrological Self-Care. It had a lot of great information in it. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Thank you. Yes, to me, I'm so happy you asked that, especially because community is so important to me. So, a couple of ways you can find me at my website, which is my name, stephaniegailing.com. And there you can actually sign up for my weekly newsletter. It's free. I give an overview astrologically and from a well-being perspective of the week and other information that may be of interest. Also, you can find, and you can also then know about the events and the online workshops that I'm doing and my client work that I do and sort of everything within my offerings. And if you're in social media, I am on Instagram. You can find me there at Stephanie_Gailing. Last thing too is you can find me. I do a monthly podcast with a colleague, and that's called So Divine, and you can find that on my website as well. So it's another way to connect with me and be part of the community.
Well, that sounds so exciting. I'm so glad that we were able to spend this time together. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Complete Guide to Astrology Self-Care. The Complete Guide to Astrology Self-Care is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.